It's past 5:30, 5:31, so we'll call this meeting to order. Are you taking
I
notes?
do, you
We
have
have
a quorum, Mr. Chairman, you have 3 members present. Absent right now is, Mr. Luton and Ms. Reed.
That's correct. So we have 3, we have a quorum, so we can conduct business. Okay, item number 3 on our agenda is discuss premium pay for frontline workers at Stewart County Health Department and, school office workers. It says, here there's 19 full-time healthcare workers at the health department and 13 part-time school office workers. The full-time, naturally, that, according to the way we've been paying, $4,000 each, and the part-time are $2,000 each. So, Mr. Mayor, you wanna address that?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Full-time health workers was something that was not included in the interim rule, but it was included in the final rule. So that's why you haven't seen this before, because you know, it's almost logical common sense that your frontline health workers.
Yeah, I don't know why they wasn't included, they were definitely on the front line.
They were, and I think a lot of the confusion was because we have both state and county workers.
Sure.
So once they ironed that out and how to get the money to them, so that's why we went ahead and were able to include them. And, the part-time school office workers, it's front-facing, so it's easy to justify. They were public-facing and, handing off documentation, backpacks, lunches, different, plans, lesson plans. So it's easy to justify the school office workers. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, we'll discuss this. Any discussion on this?
Well, them, full-time worker, are them just county workers? You said something in Barrow State, Barrow County?
Yes, they're full-time workers, like the nurses and the staff at the health department.
Well, but they're not county employees, right?
There are about 6 of them are capped through the county, they're paid through the county.
And the rest are state, you said?
Yes, through the state grant.
Were they gonna get anything from the state, anything?
They would get their normal, they would get their normal cost of allowance, living allowance, or their normal raise, but nothing as far as, COVID ARPA money. This follows the model here that, other counties have used.
So they wouldn't draw 2, 1 from the
No,
state?
thank you for bringing that up. No, they would absolutely not be getting another bonus from the state.
That's why they wanted to know.
Is the reason the ones that are state employees are considered in this is because they're giving money to employees there that are county employees, and since you're dealing with one entity, you're trying to make it fair? Is that
Yes.
what's going on there?
That's right, Gates. And they are, when you're talking about this pandemic, they were the actual front line.
Agreed.
And,
Yeah.
and that was the question that they asked, that they were asking during the interim rule. This is state, but when they finally ironed that out in the final rule.
Yeah, and not to open, it'll be like the last time, open up a bucket of worms. If we chose to do so, would nurses that say the health department be eligible, nursing home be eligible for this, and Dr. Lee's office and Krista Blank's office?
To be honest with you, Mr. Gates, they could be, and that determination falls on the elected official of the jurisdiction.
Okay.
So yes, there's a lot of people that could be considered, and they are some of them. That's exactly right.
And that just the burden falls on that elected official to choose.
It does. And how much money we actually have, we try to prioritize those.
Because common sense would tell you that
Big question.
if we open it up to everybody, the balance would go down.
And just when you say open it up to everybody, you could actually give individual households, every individual household in Stewart County a defined amount of money. And we worked that out depending on if there were 7,500 meters in Stewart County, you could give each county family or each meter about $350 or $400. You could, you do the math.
Yeah.
But, so it does go down that far, and that would include beauty salons, hair salons, restaurants. You could consider everything, but you have to justify it, you have to prioritize it. And get it past you guys, and the priority scale.
Any more questions about item number extend Robert's rules a little bit, we need a motion and a second to approve it, and then we can discuss it some more if we need to.
I'll make a motion.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now, any more discussion? Floor is open for discussion.
How much more money you got coming in from that? Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Fiji, that's a really good question, you're actually reading my mind, because I wish I would've told you that before. But, once we spend all the money, once you approve all the money going out to premium pay for essential employees, all of the nonprofits, Parks and Recreation, $250,000, roads and highways, $500,000. Once you spend all that money, you're gonna come down to about $500,000 left, and that's what we intend to use for matching. So you can take some of this ARPA money and you can use it for matching funds. So we're down to about $500,000 after the second half of the money comes in May. That will be that. We got 1.33 last May, and we'll get the other this May. But after all that money I just mentioned is distributed, we'll have about $500,000 left for matching funds.
a lot of that equation, I didn't know, Common where we want around $200,000. Where you at on that?
So, the Cumberland City money, originally, we were gonna try to give Cumberland City $200,000 out of this money. But they changed, and they actually gave Cumberland City $600,000 of their own money. So when they did that, that lowered the priority for the county. So when Cumberland City had their own money, that kinda took them off of the high list and dropped them on down to where now we're just gonna provide matching funds for them, and they can spend their own money on that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking on that.
Is there a certain percentage of the match?
Depends on the grant, and it depends on the project.
Right.
But, Stewart County is a tier 3 county, so generally, it could get as low as 6%.
Oh, right.
I wasn't aware in Common got the $600,000.
Dover and Cumberland City both got money.
They both,
Yes.
but you know Common got $600,000.
I'm just kind of estimating, Terry, I'm estimating in my head, but I know they were giving premium pay to their employees, so that was a pot of money they didn't got.
Well, they wouldn't go up to $600,000.
And let's confirm how much that is.
I know I missed the first, oversight committee meeting, and not to get off topic from this, it would help me make my mind up on this, so I'm gonna ask some questions too. Have we, the money we get from this, I don't know if it's possible, and I might have asked this, and if I forgot it, that's on me. Have we looked at possibly buying things, as in like for public safety, patrol cars, ambulances?
Capital projects?
Making sure the road department don't need equipment or anything since we've got this money?
Well, we're gonna give $500,000 to the road department, and so
So that
specifically
that figure's already come out of what you just told Commissioner Fitzhugh.
Right,
Okay.
right, yeah, so that's coming, and that, the second half of the money will be in May, and I've expressed to the highway superintendent that he would have access to that $500,000 in May. And if it's legal, Mr. Case, if it's legal to put it in capital projects, that may be something that we wanna talk to him about, but I'm not sure if you can do.
I was asking that, and I had some more, I know we discussed doing some property tax relief for some seniors.
You can't do it for that.
And I figured you probably couldn't, but can you give this money to a regular household?
You could.
So in a sense, if the senior citizens had to pay full amount for their property tax, can them people qualify, or do we somehow, you see where I'm going with this?
You know, and again, you have to justify it, and really what it comes down to is the nomenclature. I mean, how are you describing it? And if you can describe it as not a tax write-off or a tax, recovery, then maybe you can push it through, but it cannot be any kind of offset to a tax or.
And then when you start talking about getting household, you're opening up a big.
Exactly, I agree.
And,
I'm not gonna take credit opinion.
That's good.
And
Well, my
I relayed
opinion
some of my
is-
constituents'
yes.
questions that I just couldn't totally answer.
Well, they're excellent questions because they get all the information out, so thank you guys. And I hope I can continue the next one, because I can get back with you.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Roll call vote. Mr. Fitzhugh?
Yeah.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
I vote yes. Number 3 passes. Okay, Mr. Mayor, number 4, discuss and assign individual oversight membership responsibility of nonprofit sub-recipient monitoring of ARPA money, management consulting money set aside for monitoring if, we choose to assign contracted monitoring.
Mr. Chairman, so basically, when we give this money to the nonprofits, we have to monitor it. We have to do sub-recipient monitoring. We're the recipient of the money and we're giving it to a sub-recipient, we have to monitor that. So, what we're gonna do is, we're going to request a W-9 from each nonprofit and a template where they outline where their money's gonna be spent, how it can be tied into COVID. And then the third thing is the receipts. Now, on some things, that could be easy. But on something like Parks and Recreation, where there's $250,000, we would either need to have a member, an oversight committee member, volunteer to maybe collect those receipts, work closely with the Parks and Recreation or Athletic Association, to get that money. But there's also, in the final rule, it was in the interim rule, you can set money aside for consulting fees, for
Well, I
people to hire.
I thought we had kinda done that.
We did, and that's what I wanted, there's money set aside, there's 5,000 this fiscal year, 5,000, according to the ARPA money that we put out there.
Well, I don't mind helping anybody, but I don't know that I'm qualified to go over the receipts and.
Well, what I'm gonna just say, you're thinking, you're over athletic association.
I'm one of the board members.
Well, you're one of the board members, doesn't they bring the receipts into heaven, and what they're doing here?
We're trying to keep away from that, we're trying to keep away from, we're trying to keep it separate from our own accounts and budgets, and that's recommended. to keep it
Well,
separate.
I think anytime like tomorrow, and I feel this way, anybody that gets any of this money ought to be accountable for what they're using it
Oh, I agree.
for.
Absolutely.
They just hand out money, I might hand out money to the kids, I wanna know what they're doing with it.
Now, let me clarify.
Yeah, where it's been, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Let me clarify what I just said, Mr. Fitzhugh. Once we collect these receipts, our finance director will go through every one of them.
Well, that's
So
what
she will have final oversight, but I don't want her to have to be the responsible one of collecting it along the way.
I
I want
understand.
everything put together for a nice vote before it gets done. And we do have, Mr. Chairman, to answer your question, we do have consulting fee money to hire some people to do that. And I've already been talking to different firms about that possibility, if you choose to go there.
Well, I know years ago, anybody like fire department, everyone, any nonprofit had to show where they were spending their money. And that's just accountability. Well, I mean, it should be, and I'm not pointing no fingers at nobody. Well, I mean, if they give me $10,000, I need to show what I'm doing with it, you know?
And the last time we had our meeting and we were going over all those nonprofits, that was my question. About what they were gonna do with the money. I wish we could have backed our card up and had them come before us and tell us before we approved them getting money. So do we have a legal leg to stand on? And then what's the penalty if they spend it on something other than?
Well, they submitted proposals, and so we actually handed all those proposals out, so every nonprofit submitted a proposal and, a reason, a justification why it was tied into COVID. So, and that's.
So if we're, I'm not picking on animal groups when I say this, but there were one of them that I think that if they wanted to, they could be malicious and use money for something else.
You're exactly
It'd
right.
be easier for them, not saying they're going to.
No, but I think we need to be memorandums of understanding with certain animal groups to make sure that they're gonna tend to animals in Stewart County at least a great percentage of the time. We don't want this money, you know, all of it going out of the county. I understand that maybe a
My
small
concern would
percentage.
be if somebody come in and said, I'm building 50 kennels, and they build 10, buy a brand new pickup truck with the rest of their money.
Yes, that's right.
So, I mean, are they gonna bring that and show us that?
Yes, so when the final rule came out, it was a lot less restrictive than the animal, a lot less restrictive. For example, if you got up to $10 million, you could just write it off into government services, and everything you spend the money on could be tied to government services, which is different than the interim rule, which said there was an unrestricted pot. An unrestricted pot, to me, is unrestricted, but government services, that could be a little bit more red tape. So,
But do they legally have to, if they told us they're building 50 kennels, do they have to?
yes, well, yes.
Or what's the penalty
Well,
if they don't?
but it was,
And I ain't trying to be a problem.
no, I mean, actually, once the money's spent, you know, we're really relying on these folks to do what they're gonna do and monitor along the way, weekly monitoring. You know, you're not gonna just give them the money and see in 3 months. It's gonna be every week, we're gonna check the project. That's an example of the Stewart County Historical Society and their construction, that's weekly monitoring. So that's kind of what I'm gonna do, but that's, and then the memorandum of understanding. But just to clarify what you're saying, Hot Rod Garage, which is a whole different story, and Biker Bully Sagely, Biker Bully Farm, both of those are scheduled to get $20,000 a year for 2 years, $40,000 each, and they're scheduled to build 6 kennels each. So between them, there would be 12 kennels if they, you know, stay, if Hot Rod Garage remains an entity, which is kind of a question mark.
Well, they don't spend that money, and they need to bring it, revert back to the county, right? They get 20,000, they spend 10,000 of it, just that, the other 10 come right back to the.
I think one thing that either a member or the consulting firm might say is that we're not gonna give you all your money at once, we're gonna give you the money as you need it.
I don't know that would be a bad,
I know,
good idea.
I know the Department of Agriculture has the Tennessee Ag Enhancement Program for farmers. And they give money out for that, but you have to build a structure first, and they'll match up to so much. Like a hay barn was 7,500 or something, Jan probably would know too. It was like 7,500, up to 7,500, they would match, half up to 7,500. You have to build it first, send all your receipts in, and then real meticulous if you got your money. And then they come out and spot check, and it had to be used as a hay barn structure for 2 years. After that, they could turn it into a home if they wanted to. I think it should have been forever, but that wasn't my decision. And that's some of the things I worry about, is some things like that, maybe possibly going on, or maybe, you know, if they, some of these facilities or these organizations you mentioned, if we gave them 20,000, and I think you might have covered that, we may not only give them the 2 at a time or something like that, if they went bankrupt.
It sounds
no
like-
longer doing it.
It does sound like to me, Mr. Chairman, that we do need to bring this consulting firm in to
Well,
oversee
I
this.
agree.
And put these restrictions on it that you're talking about, and outline to them, this is what we expect.
Well, to me, you know, when they put it in their proposal, this is what we're going to build 6 kennels, and it's on their, it's in paper, it's on writing, you know, it's in writing, if they did that, then I think that's what the money should go for.
There's another scenario here. If they build that on their property, and they build them 6 kennels, whatever, on their property, and they go belly up, they're no longer an organization or whatever, we got money tied up in them kennels. Now, we're getting in.
I just think you never do it with Google.
We just lose it.
I think you would.
Oh, after that, I
Give
would-
somebody a check to do something on their own property, I think we just lose it. Unless you still pursue them, and it would be worth it to me to spend taxpayer dollars to simply sue somebody over
But if they build
$20,000.
that on their own property, and then they ain't tied to sell that property, if they put it up for sale, they'll move somewhere else. Look what's that there.
That was just a concern I had.
So,
Look what's that there.
so with Biker Bully Sage Farm, I know they have invested a lot of money in
They
that
have.
property. I don't know so much about question, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think, for this discussion on item 4 is, I think you're wanting us to say whether we want, consulting firm to check, on this. That's the way I read it.
It's
So you
either,
want a firm or you want some commissioners or something? So-
that's your choice, that's what I would like for you to decide, would you rather have a commissioner overseeing it, or a professional firm?
Do you know what the cost of a professional firm is?
I think it's gonna be less than the $10,000 we've set aside.
Discussion.
And you got a commissioner that would be willing to do that.
The animal control is gonna be the toughest one.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I agree
And
with
it's
that.
gonna be money good.
I agree with that.
I don't see a problem with Parks and Recreation, I don't see a problem with.
Oh, I don't think a problem.
Is this something that can be approved to be sent to the full commission?
Oh, yeah, I think it's all gotta be.
No, to do either or, not just pick one here.
Absolutely. If
Yeah,
you want to have
absolutely.
firm, if you-
Or make it up. with
Yes, I
commissioners
agree.
volunteer.
Yes.
But you take it commissioner, you're asking him to volunteer his time, everybody else gets paid.
I'm just being very time consuming, very meticulous going through receipts and keeping up myself.
Well, I think that whoever does it has to be qualified to do it.
Absolutely.
That's me. And if we have to pay the consulting firm to do it, then I think that they're probably qualified to do
This
it.
consulting firm, would they go out?
Well, that's gonna
How
be-
far would they go?
Well, you're gonna have to determine who you wanna hire. I mean, we'll bring them before you.
I would like to know from them, and I know you're willing to bring them, I know you are, but what, if we're gonna pay them $10,000, if they're not gonna save us nothing, if they can just do what they still, and there's no penalty for it, then I don't.
Well, I think when
Well,
we
you-
bring
well,
them and interviews them, when we interview them, then we tell them what we want them to do.
I agree.
They're working for us.
But like that,
They're working
legally,
for us.
legally, if you give me $50,000 to do such and such.
Can you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I did half of that and decide, you know what, I ain't doing this no more.
Yeah.
And you gave me $25,000 or $15,000, how do you recoup that money you gave?
Yeah, I don't know
If
about
we're gonna
that.
pay the consultant firm $10,000 or $2,000, and they can't get nothing back.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the consulting firm's place to come back and say, listen, they're not spending the money the way it's supposed to be.
And it may just be that's
What's
what it's
the
gonna
penalty?
be.
Yeah, that's,
What's the penalty?
yeah, what's the penalty? I don't know that, I can't answer that either. But I think that's what they would be for, if we've got receipts and things, that we know they're not spending it the way they said they're going to. Or they might come in here and say they're doing it, they're doing it 100% like they said it's going to.
Maybe like makers said, we give them $2,000 a week, and if they don't do it, then they ain't getting no more money. I mean,
I think that's an excellent suggestion.
I think it is,
they only
too.
have a little bit of money then.
I think it is.
And
too.
And
you,
monitoring, it's called sub-recipient monitoring, it'll be monitored.
but if they take and build that on their own property, and they tie it up and sell it, move, you know, lost it.
You did. If they did everything the way we requested, and the minute that's done, they put their property up for sale, we did some. Well, but I don't know the way to solve that.
Mr. Blake, you don't mind Mr. Blake saying something?
They cannot build,
He's already been talking for 10 minutes.
Well,
I might as well
hey.
hear him.
they cannot build it on their property. That is not a nonprofit. If the nonprofit doesn't own the property, they can't use nonprofit money on that property.
That's where my problem is.
Yeah,
Why
I
would
give them the
you
money.
build it on private property?
So if their property is not listed in their 501c3,
Then they can't build on
I
it.
got you.
That's where
If
I
it's their
think.
private
the
property.
problem is.
I agree.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't want, just say, I took your camp, you took y'all's money. Went there at the house, built some, but I decided I'm gonna sell it. Y'all, you're out. Yeah.
Is this considered though, since this is not like nonprofits in our general fund budget that we're approving, and this COVID money, is it still fall under the same rules of nonprofit?
Yes, sir. They have to be
Because
nonprofit.
what
I
I'm
think
saying is,
nonprofit's nonprofit.
I understand the athletic.
They have to be
association.
registered as a 501c3
I
to be a
understand
nonprofit.
y'all situation. Well, I mean, when the athletic association does, the county owns part of the property, or or, you know, pretty much, it ain't a private owned deal. And, if I built something out of the house and using county money, y'all don't wanna know, y'all don't wanna lose that money, you know.
Ballpark is different, they
That's
are,
right,
they
different
are,
ballgame.
they are,
Mr.
they are
Mayor, do we have
nonprofit.
a check on?
Absolutely. Absolutely, before any money
County
is
attorney
dispersed,
can check it.
to build the kennels, this is all we're talking about.
Right.
To build the kennels, the six dog kennels. So we just wanna make sure those two kennels, that's all we're talking about.
Well, will our attorney know that? When you wanna talk to Carl about that?
Yeah, we need some guy.
I'll send them all.
I'll be the first to say that something needs to be done down in control of the county. I know it does. But I also know that before we spend some money, or I think, that before we spend some money, and you phrase that, I think and I feel, before we spend some monies that we have, I know there's other things, in my opinion, that are above animal control right now. And that's my concern.
And then, I want to say
And
that.
I don't mind this money, this total money, I don't mind if it's right. Because we got some monies here, it is our money. I mean, our federal tax dollars and stuff to pay for this, but
We got
it's
to
not
leave.
local tax dollars.
We got to leave.
Right.
So,
Go ahead.
well, for this discussion, you know, I think what he's looking for now is a decision whether we wanna go to the county commission and say we want the consulting firm to do it, or we wanna do it ourselves.
And I make a motion for that,
For what?
to have both options presented to the full commission.
But I'm gonna throw it out there, if they're building, taking this money and putting it on their private property, to me, it shouldn't be done.
Oh, I'm saying,
It shouldn't be done.
that's not anything for this.
Yeah, I kinda got us off topic, I'm sorry.
What?
Yeah, what he's wanting to know right now is, do we want a consulting firm to check on these things, or do we wanna do it ourselves?
I don't know if you got anybody that will do it.
I understand, that's what we want to
Can we
know.
not
What his motion is, to go to the full county commission and say, we need to make this decision,
One or the other.
one or the other. He's not
We'll be
choosing.
discussing that night, but yeah, we'll
Is
send
that-
Are you second?
I'm gonna second that.
Okay,
I
okay.
am. And I won't get under that, I'm not referring to the ballpark or that, if
Right,
county, if
right.
it's a county entity or whatever, I don't have
What-
a
what
problem
you-
with it.
what-
But on private property, I've got a problem with it.
What we're saying is that we want to decide, which entity we want to oversee this. The consulting firm.
Hey, I know.
I got you.
I got you.
Okay, Mr.
I'm
Mayor,
saying-
you have that down in
I have
the
a
motion.
motion, defer which entity to oversee.
Okay, I got you. Okay, any more discussion?
I just feel like that's the decision the full commission should make.
I agree.
No,
We
no
shouldn't
problem
just
with
send
it.
them one option.
No,
I
no
just feel
problem
like
with
they should have, if we're gonna do it, the full commission should have say so, if we're gonna do it for
Sure.
us, or.
No, I have a problem with it.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
What would you think, just for argument's sake, what would you think they would decide?
I don't know. I know.
I don't know I can't speak for 14 people, but for myself, I'd rather the consulting
I
firm.
had two.
I would think,
If we interview at Pickmore.
If you read.
I'll do it for 10 grand.
What do you think?
He said he'd do it for 10 grand.
That's what I'm saying. You know, somebody gonna be paying you if they come over and get
And you probably got
I'll
time.
do it for 5.
You just had.
Save you 5.
Hey, I have a
Money done
feeling,
for two.
I have a feeling nobody gets money jammed for some reason. I don't know, I just have a feeling.
Well, I mean, nothing don't slip by.
They'd be qualified or they wouldn't get it.
That's right, that's right.
Well, like I said, I ain't got a problem with ballpark or something like that, but private property, I have.
Okay, we got a motion and a second on the floor to send that to full commission for
Yes,
decision.
yes.
Okay. Mr. Fitch?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Kay?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, so that's unanimous.
You got that, Mark? I think
Mark, you got this?
She'll want to report.
She will. Okay. Item number 5 falls under new business. Cruise Stewart County Cub Scouts, $6,000. Stewart County American Legion Douglas Lions Post 72 at $6,000. Handicap swings, for Dyers Creek and Lee Creek Recreation Area at $8,000. And according to this, Mr. Jeff Hancock, Corps Engineers has approved that being done. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, that's correct, and this is something that was spoken about at the health council yesterday. We're gonna try to go after grants, but I've spoken with the sheriff, and, this is their handicap swing sets. Apparently, they're only about $4,000 a piece, and we talked, Commissioner Fields was there yesterday, and so we thought that would be.
Where will these go, the handicap?
The one
In
near
Dyers
Dyers
Creek?
Creek, and then one at City Park at Lake Creek.
Oh, okay.
You know how long the leases have been agreed on these? Cause we looked, I know the city leases from the Corps Engineers.
I know I've heard 25 years in the past, but
Yeah.
I don't, they wanted to do.
Well, what about
Hickory
Dyers Creek? Who sees that, the Corps?
That's
Court. And I know they get used a lot, when I'm out on patrol, there's kids and families down there, and I mean, they really are.
They are used a lot.
They already use a lot.
And I think, and of course, I just walked in, but I think you said yesterday that Frankie had already talked with Jeff Hancock.
Yes, approval in principle, nothing signed yet, but agreement in principle.
And what was on the Cub Scout position? Is there anything particular?
You know, we'd already approved money for the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts.
Mhm.
I thought the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts were joined together, but they're not, they're a completely separate entity. And so this is kind of putting money to them too. And the same thing with the American Legion, the VFW had already been approved, and the American Legion is trying to get set up, so hopefully they'll be able to justify getting some of this money. This is gonna be a tricky one, you'll have to justify it. We'll see how that-
Well, it's like everybody else, you know, they gotta show us what they're bidding.
Yeah, that's right.
Does all the nonprofit bring something in every year to show their?
Yes, they bring in the yearly financial, they bring in.
That's what I'm asking, yeah, they always have, I just wonder if they're still doing that or what.
All right, discussion? Motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion to approve. You have a second?
Listen, I thought we started at 6 o'clock.
Well, listen, we're gonna dock your phone.
Listen, I'm gonna need that pay.
But you need your oil.
Gas is going up, I'm gonna need that extra money.
I got you. I got you. Okay, we have a motion to approve these. Do we have a second? You
Yeah,
second?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, I
I
didn't
think
think.
that's what I said.
I'm sorry, Melissa.
You ain't nothing else,
Mayor's short. That's right. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now discussion. Any discussion on this?
they will show you what they're doing with that money.
Yes. And in their proposal, they've already said that they're gonna earmark it for camping equipment. That's for the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts.
Right. Gotcha. Any discussion from you? Either one? More discussion? All right. More discussion. We're gonna do a roll call vote on this, Ms. Markey. Mr. Markey. Mr. Fitchie.
Yeah.
Ms. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Fitchie.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. That's unanimous. All right, that was all that's on our agenda tonight.
Do you have any other new business, Mr. Chairman?
I have none. Does anybody else have any?
Is there any other people that we may be forgetting, any nonprofit, any? I think this is gonna probably wrap it up for premium pay for essential employees.
I hope it does.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Make a motion to adjourn. You have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, I know